Hello guys, today we're going to be talking about macros 101. If you guys are on HOFIT, if you don't know, you will soon come to know that we use a method called flexible dieting, and that is macro tracking. So today we're going to dive into it. So what are macronutrients? Macros and macronutrients, it's kind of interchangeable at this point, so you will hear me refer to it as both, but these are the essential nutrients that our body needs in relatively large amounts. So this is protein, carbs, and fats. So when you think macros or macronutrients, I want you to think large. We need them in large amounts. When you hear micronutrients or micros, think we need them in smaller amounts. So that would be things like vitamins and minerals. So macros, protein, carbs, fats, we need them in large amounts. Micros, think small, vitamins and minerals, we need them in smaller amounts. So how does tracking macros fit into the HOFIT philosophy? So tracking macros allows us to be relatively precise with our daily totals of protein, carbs, and fats, while still providing a ton of flexibility within what's making up those food groups. So for instance, if you want, if our choice is a protein, if you want a chicken versus a shrimp versus a lean ground turkey versus a steak versus a salmon, you have the flexibility within that macronutrient to fill the macro with whatever food choice that you want. So yes, it gives us the control around the daily totals, allows us to be precise, but it still provides you a ton of autonomy and decision making when it comes to what's actually filling that food group. For most of us, this is reason number 2, for most of us, we are not going for a skinnier, softer version of ourselves. We are looking to be more lean and toned. We want those muscles popping through, and we want to feel and function at our best. So by getting precise on how much we eat of each macro, we are not only able to manage our total caloric intake, but we'll also be able to achieve more specific goals like optimal performance, body composition, which is that lean muscle mass to body fat ratio, hormone and gut health optimization, and a whole lot more. And it also teaches you about what's in your food from a nutrient compositional standpoint. When you begin to tap into how a specific food quantity and quality makes you feel, you begin to further that intuition and tap into what your body is actually needing. And this is an incredible lifetime skill that you gain from tracking macros and understanding what's actually in your food. So that's why we take that macro tracking approach. So each macronutrient has a specific caloric value. So carbs and protein, for each gram of carbohydrate and protein, it equals 4 calories. So 4 calories per gram. For fats are a little bit more calorically dense, so those are 9 calories per gram. So if you've ever had a high fat meal, or maybe you have like avocado toast in the morning and you're like, holy shiz, like I'm so satiated, I'm not hungry at all. It might be because you have a higher fat content. So do we need all 3 macronutrients for a healthy lifestyle? In short, yes, each macronutrient serves an important role in the body and helps us feel, function, and perform at our best. So let's dive into just a short overview of what each of these macronutrients do in the body. So carbs are the body's primary source of energy. So we have 2 main types of carbs. We have simple carbs and then we have complex carbs. Simple carbs, these are carbs that can be broken down in the digestive system relatively quickly, and they also induce a quick spike to blood sugar. So this can sometimes be less nutrient dense. There are some exceptions like fruit or natural fruit juices, that kind of thing. But simple carbs are great around training because they do have that immediate energy source, and it does spike our blood sugar because they are quick digesting. So examples of this could be fruit, dairy, cookies, sweetened drinks, post-workout drinks, even intra-workout drinks like Gatorade, raisins, dried fruit, fruit juices, kids cereal, that kind of thing. Those are going to fall in the category of being quick digesting, simple carbohydrates. On the other side, we have complex carbs. So complex carbs typically take the body a little bit longer to break down. This can help us stabilize our blood sugar and have a more sustainable energy throughout the day. They are typically higher in fiber and mineral content, and then complex carbs do keep us fuller longer, so they're great around breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Examples of this would be whole grains, oats, potatoes, pastas, rice, etc. You can have these around your training. It's not a huge deal, but I prefer to have them around like an hour and a half pre or post workout because it is going to be a little bit heavier on your stomach versus a simple carbohydrate, which could be like cereal, juice, fruit, that kind of thing. So think Complex, a little bit slower to digest, great for sustainable energy and just satiety throughout the day. Simple carbohydrates, those are your juices, your sweets, your fruits, that kind of thing. Those are great around pre-workout, post-workout, that kind of thing when we need that immediate energy source. It's important to note that you can and you should have both simple and complex carbs. Unless you struggle with things like insulin resistance or insulin insensitivity, insatiable hunger, you are dealing with some like blood sugar regulation issues, we don't necessarily need to focus too heavily on like the ratio of simple to complex carbs. Complex carbs are great for that more sustainable energy throughout the day, but simple carbs definitely serve an important function as well. So you can kind of figure out where you need to be specific to you, but unless you have blood sugar problems or insulin resistance, we don't necessarily need to overly stress about the ratio from simple to complex. So protein. Protein is perhaps the most important of the 3 macronutrients for overall longevity and health. Every single cell in our being contains protein. So protein is responsible for cell production and repair, immune health, pH balance, fluid balance, hormonal production, and a lot more. Our bodies are in a constant state of tissue repair, which comes from protein. So being deficient in protein can definitely take a toll on the body. And then fats, and these are, not the fats that make you fat. I guess anything in excess can make you fat, but fats alone don't just inherently make you fat. So fat is the backup energy source when carbohydrates aren't available. And fats play a huge role in temperature regulation, vitamin and mineral absorption, and healthy hormones. So if you are too low on your healthy fats, you may experience things like dry hair, brittle nails, poor digestion, dull skin, that type of thing. I remember back in contest prep when my fats got low, my hair was falling out, breaking off like crazy. So it's crazy how you can tell when you're kind of low fats. And then fats are also highly satiating, as they do come with a little bit more caloric density. So they are 9 calories compared to protein and carbs, which are 4 calories per gram. So let's, kind of get it all together here. So you've just got your numbers, now what? So when your coach gives you your targets, it's not as simple as track as you go and succeed. In a perfect world, maybe, but we don't want to end up with like a hodgepodge of macro mess when it's time to go to bed, or stuck with like no macros left and you're starving. So keeping these tips in mind when you're actually ready to get tracking, just to avoid the macro Tetris. So number 1 is going to be to pre-track and build out your own meal plan. Giving yourself a skeleton to work off of really, it just makes things so much easier. So if you, take 8 to 10 minutes in the night before and kind of map out what you have in your fridge, what you have prepped, maybe what protein you have on hand, just to give yourself kind of like a skeleton to work off of, it really will save so much time and headache the next day. And if you're a creature of habit, so like if breakfast is always the same, go ahead and pre-log it. If you already know what you're going to have for lunch, go ahead and track it. If you know you have a sweet tooth and you always end the night with a couple Oreos, go ahead and log them so that you can, engineer your macros to meet your goals, but also your preferences. And then once you have that skeleton, it becomes really easy to kind of like plug and play until the serving sizes and food choices align with your targets. So this is beyond helpful. So if you, have your skeleton by the end of the day and you're like, I'm still 15 grams under on protein, I'm, 20 grams over on carbs, then you go back in and see where you logged potato, 150 grams. Maybe you drop that to 120 grams. You see your chicken where you logged it as 3 grams and we need 15 grams of protein. Maybe you bump that by an ounce and then you bump another meal by an ounce. So it really becomes easy to plug and play off that skeleton. It's just really hard to go from breakfast to snack to lunch to snack to dinner, logging as you go. You're really going to give yourself a lot of a headache at the end of the day. So just save some time, pre-log some stuff. It will make your life 10 times easier. And then stick to single macronutrient or single ingredient foods to start. So things like casseroles, pizza, sushi, that kind of thing, it consists of a combination of macronutrients. So it's probably going to be difficult to eyeball and track. Instead, stick to simple foods that are single macronutrients. So like a chicken breast, is a protein. A steak is a protein. It has a little bit of fat. It's going to be higher fat content than a chicken breast, but it's mainly protein and fat. And then a potato, it's a carb. An avocado is a fat. So if you need a food list, we do have it here. It's not hyperlinked yet, but it will be by the time this video is out to you. So you can go there and find a food list as well. And then start with one macronutrient at a time. If you are a little bit overwhelmed with all three, that is a-okay. Aim to hit your protein at first. And you can take that protein total, divide it by how many meals you want throughout the day, and that will give you kind of a ballpark average of how much protein each meal needs to consist of, just to give you, again, an idea of how to navigate your meals throughout the day. And then, of course, once you get comfortable with that, you can add the other macronutrients on there. And then my last tip for you is just to be patient. Learn from every day. On the days that you were under target, look back and see what you could have added or increased. Oftentimes you'll find it's a minor tweak or small addition. And then the days that you're over target, look back to see where your macros came from and how you could have adjusted. Maybe you could have taken some things out or decreased portion sizes, found substitutions in the future. Remember that this is your lifestyle, and just like any change, it's not going to happen overnight. Some common mishaps or missteps that you may find in MyFitnessPal. So nutrition labels can flat out be incorrect sometimes, and they can round up and round down on their labels. So this is 100% allowed, and it just makes the package more aesthetic. So the calories can round up or round down, but oftentimes the macronutrients are not rounded. So we like to go off of macronutrients. Again, don't go off the calories. And then MyFitnessPal also contains a slew of inaccurate logs. So you have to remember that MyFitnessPal is a database, and individuals like you and I are allowed to go in and submit their entries. And oftentimes they get approved and they may not be super accurate. So we suggest looking up a few entries for the food that you're looking at and choosing the one that is similar to the rest. If they have like a check mark on it, that typically means it's a verified food in MyFitnessPal. Those are usually safe to click as well. But you just don't want to be tracking, say a chicken breast, and you find entries that, or this is a better example. You don't want to be tracking a piece of cake and you find entries that are like 0 calories. It's 50 grams of protein, no carbs, no sugar. And you're like, oh, wow, that one is great. I'm going to add this one to my macros just to like be in your favor. You know what I mean? So just make sure that a couple of the entries are similar. So you're picking a food log that is accurate to you. Like I said, nutrition labels can sometimes just be flat out wrong. If you've ever noticed that alcohol doesn't have a nutrition label, alcohol has calories and it is a carb, but it is the 4th macronutrient. So it does not follow the 4 calorie per gram rule that carbohydrates follow. So we do have a little cheat sheet for this too, but this one's important to keep in mind when you are kind of pre-logging some alcohol. So alcohol in MyFitnessPal will oftentimes contain calories, but not the macros. So to accurately log your alcohol so that it would subtract calories and macros, we have to utilize our little alcohol calculator cheat sheet. So you're welcome to click that. It's just a free resource here. So for all of the above reasons, we recommend you lean on focusing on tracking the macros versus the calories. Macronutrients are typically way more accurately presented on food labels, whereas calories can be quite skewed. And then if you're hitting your macronutrient goals, you're likely to be within range of calories. If your daily total calories are more than a couple hundred off once you've hit your macros, you may want to skim back through your entries and just double check to make sure everything was accurately logged. Again, guys, I know macros, tracking macros, MyFitnessPal, it can be a little overwhelming if you've never done it before, but it just makes sense. It teaches you so much about what's in your food, how you feel on that food, how you perform, function, thrive, all of those things on that amount of food. So flexible dieting can be an incredibly empowering tool, and for some people, it's not forever. So once you really understand the ins and outs of your foods and how you feel on that food, maybe the move is for you to move back away from tracking macros and really build this like intuitive approach with your nutrition. I've been eating intuitive for 4 years, but if I did not have this base knowledge of protein distribution and meal timing and how I feel on X amount of food, there's no way I would be able to move away from tracking macros and live an intuitive approach now. So it's an incredible tool. I'm really excited for you guys to dive in. Stay patient with yourself. If you guys need any help, all the coaches here on HOFIT as well as me, I'm always available for this stuff. This stuff is really my jam. Tracking macros and flexible dieting and figuring out what works for you, the individual, is my wheelhouse. So if you guys need anything, let me know. But outside of that, happy tracking.